And welcome in here.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
What a game for
Boo!
What a game for your guy, Craig. What a game for your guy, Zac Taylor, who, I mean, what a weird effing game. And the Bengals lose 2018, several decisions throughout this one that don't make a lick of sense. The Bengals defense played pretty good, I thought, for the most part. I mean, obviously dropped there in the final drive. And the Bengals, I was just thinking about this. I don't know the last time the Bengals have ever, in the last 2 years, their defense has gotten a stop in those final 2 minutes. Beside the point here, Bengals drop to 6-11 on the season, which in turn, I guess, helps their potential draft. But, man, it would have been nice to beat the Browns for one last time, and especially a game that the Bengals were trying to win, Craig. I'll hand over the reins to you unless you just want to keep booing, because I'm cool with booing, too, if you want to do that.
Boo!
Boo! All right.
Look, this has been the conversation all week. Why bother to play Joe Burrow, to play T. Higgins, to play Jamar Chase, to play Chase Brown, if you're not even going to coach to win the game? Zac Taylor started early in this one showing that he wasn't coaching to win the game. He was running the ball a lot, which is fine. We get mad at him a lot for overthrowing in most games anyway, but clearly not a traditional game plan. He goes and has that 4th and 1 at the plus 45-yard line and decides to take a delay of game penalty and punt it away. Trash decision there. Just the entire game managed as if he wasn't interested in winning this game, despite the fact that he had his starters playing in that entire game. It just didn't make any sense. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, the Cleveland Browns very clearly were playing for their head coach, a head coach that is expected not to be back with the team after tomorrow's Black Monday. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I wish I could sit here and say that was the last time we're going to see Zac Taylor as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, but all reports are that he will be back next year. It just doesn't make any sense to me, Reed. I'm beyond frustrated. I've been booing since that 4th and 1 punt, and I'll just keep on booing throughout the entire post-game show. Boo!
Well, it's weird because not only that, not only that decision, that chicken shit, as I called it, and cowardly decision to not go for it. Because, the reason we're saying that is because what do you have to lose, brother? I mean, you're trying to win. You have the much better team. You're at home. You're on their plus side of the field. Their defense is playing great. Just go. Just go. There's literally not a single decision leaning the other way. Just go. But they don't. And what do they do later? They score in the final 2 minutes to make it 14-12, and they don't go for the 2-point conversion there either. They try points, which, I don't know. I guess if you're trying to win in a game that doesn't mean anything, just be a little more aggressive. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, Craig. And maybe this franchise, I should stop trying to make sense out of this franchise because none of it makes sense for the most part. But it's just so gosh darn frustrating to where, it's probably in the long run going to work out that you lost this game. You're already locked into your schedule for the next year. You put yourself in a better chance to get a better draft pick. And who knows? You might be looking in 10 years, and the difference between the 8th draft pick and the 11th draft pick is a big deal. and you get a much better player because of it. So where this actually works out. But here in the moment, it just doesn't make a lick of sense. And he's coming back. Zac's coming back. And I think I'm more positive about Zac than you are, and most of the people watching this show right now are. But he's just so gosh darn frustrating. And in a game that you're at the casino and you're playing with fun money, right? There's just who cares about this money anymore, right? Because the season's over, the schedule's intact. You're going to have your job next year. You're not playing for anything. In fact, the only thing you really should be playing for is to protect Joe Burrow, and you're not just being aggressive. It doesn't. I'll let you get into the game unless you have more points. It's just I don't know, man. I don't know.
But just real quick, I mean, obviously you touched on draft position just for the afternoon slate in case you're interested. We're going into this week and the very clear rooting decisions. We want the Dolphins to beat the Patriots this afternoon, and we want the Chiefs to beat the Raiders this afternoon. Obviously, the Bengals losing, we would have preferred the Saints to beat the Falcons, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen there at the 2-minute warning. Saints do have the ball, but they trailed 19-10 in that one. So, no, I don't have a whole lot else. Let's get into the final stats and how we got to where we are today, but go ahead.
I was just going to say this. I see someone in the chat before we get to the final stats. I see someone in the chat, and a few people. Why didn't the Bengals run the ball and try to get the clock down? Listen, if the Bengals would have ran into a brick wall 2 to 3 straight times, you guys would be sitting here mad too. So, like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation. Yeah, the perfect outcome didn't happen, but they threw the ball to Jamar Chase and they scored to take the lead with 1:30 against a terrible offense. You feel pretty confident in that, even with the terrible defense. So you just get in the end zone. I'll let you get into the final stats. I just wanted to say that before I lost that train of thought.
No, it's all good. Appreciate it. Let's get into it real quick. Do a quick rundown of how we got to where we are. If you do want to take a bathroom break, Reed, I don't know if it's a super long one today, but nonetheless, we'll get into the final stats for us. Bengals force a Shedeur Sanders fumble on the Browns' first drive. Offense take over at the Browns' 29. Ultimately punch it in on a 4-yard screen pass to Chase Brown. McPherson extra point was blocked. Bengals led 6-0. After a Browns 3-and-out, the Bengals drive 60-plus yards, but a Burrow pass is tipped to the line and picked off at the goal line and taken to the house by Devin Bush to give the Browns a 7-6 lead. On the ensuing drive, Noah Fant fumbled and the ball was picked up by the Browns, returned for a second straight defensive touchdown, and the Browns then led 14-6. Bengals faced a 4th and 1 from the Browns 44, but Zac Taylor chooses to take the delay of game and punts the ball away. Teams trade multiple punts before the Bengals take over with 4:41 to play in the half. Bengals drive 79 yards in 9 plays, eating up 4 minutes and 12 seconds, capping it off with the 13-yard touchdown pass from Joe Burrow to T. Higgins, who made a one-handed grab while drawing the pass interference flag. Taylor chooses to kick the extra point instead of going for 2, and McPherson misses it. Bengals trail 14-12 at the half. Browns get the ball out of the half, put together their first solid drive of the game, ending in a 27-yard field goal and a 17-12 lead. Bengals and Browns then trade punts, and with less than 5 minutes remaining, Myles Garrett blew past Orlando Brown Jr., and Joe Burrow put forth what we'll call minimal effort to escape as Garrett earned his NFL record 23rd sack of the season. Bengals ended up punting on the drive. They'd get the ball back with 2:41 to play, cap off a 7-play, 61-yard drive with a Jamar Chase touchdown in the back corner of the end zone, giving the Bengals an 18-17 lead. 2-point conversion was no good. With 1:23 to go, the Browns take over and Shedeur Sanders throws for 33 yards to get them into field goal range. Andre Szmyt connects on a 49-yard field goal as time expires, giving the Browns a 20-17 win. Joe Burrow, 29 of 39 for 236 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Chase Brown, 72 yards on the ground. He eclipsed 1,000 yards on the ground for the season. Also had that receiving touchdown. Jamar Chase, 8 for 96 and a touchdown. T. Higgins, 6 for 67 and a touchdown. In the Browns defense, 2 touchdowns, 1 fumble, and 1 interception. Reed, I have to ask before we get into it. Did Joe Burrow take a dive?
No, he didn't take a dive. He went down quick. He went down very fast. But the reason, let me say this. If he does that in the first quarter, I think I'm on board. But in that time, fourth quarter, 5 minutes to play, just got a first down. I don't know, maybe the fact that he stepped up makes it also seem like it is. So he was trying to minimize it. I don't know.
It just room to escape off to the left, Reed. He had room. Every other play that Joe Burrow makes, he's escaping. I think the fact that it was in the fourth quarter actually might be the reason he dove, because he knew time was running out for Myles Garrett to get the sack record. And so he takes the dive. He gives Myles Garrett his record, and he walks off to live another day instead of trying to fight for his life like I think he normally would. I mean, we saw a play just a few minutes earlier where he was scrambling away, looked over his shoulder, saw Myles Garrett running after him, and made sure he got past the line of scrimmage to pick up some yards and not give him the sack on that play. He absolutely took a dive on that play. He had room to escape. He chose not to.
I'm choosing But before all the facts that you have laid out in front of me, which are good facts, it's a good argument, I am choosing to be ignorant, and I will choose to believe that he did not take a dive, because I think in that situation, I think that Joe was trying to win. And, I don't think that he was trying to do Myles Garrett any favors, unless they made some sort of backhand deal and be like, hey, next year, if you get a free lick on me, you got to at least like yell before you get there so I can get rid of it. Like you got to miss me on purpose next year if you get a free hit on me. So maybe they had a back-end deal, but no, I don't think that he took a dive. You can believe that our sweet prince is a cheater and deliberately tries to get opponents of rivals records. I choose not to believe that.
All I'm saying is it didn't look that much different than when Brett Favre took his dive for Michael Strahan. That's all I'm saying.
Time out.
The Brett Favre on Twitter, dude.
The Brett Favre dive, he ran right into Michael Strahan and then laid down. Joe at least was trying to, I don't know, there are some similarities. Are you telling me that Joe Burrow is going to defraud Athens in like 15, 20 years? The state of Ohio and Athens?
No.
Is we're going to get some story about Joe Burrow sending some pictures unelicited to some females here soon? Is that what we're going to be getting into? Is Joe going to retire 3 times? And I don't know. Are we going down that path?
No. All I'm saying is that Orlando Brown Jr., clearly he was speed rushed by Myles Garrett on the outside. Joe Burrow had plenty of room to escape underneath Myles Garrett in that scenario, chose not to. Read into it all you want, Reed. All I'm saying is that it surely looked to me like that was not the best Joe Burrow effort that I've ever seen. And we'll leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Unless you have some other. All right. Let's talk about the defense today, Reed. And you were talking about something that I think is worth mentioning real quick is when you really need it from this Bengals defense, when is the last time that they got you that stop on a final drive in order to be able to win the game? And I have an answer for you, and it's definitely not this year. You look at the games that the Bengals won this year. We start in week 1. Bengals beat the Browns 17-16. Bengals went up in that game in the third quarter. So did they need a final drive to hold it? Not necessarily. The last several drives for the Browns in that game, they turned it over in downs. They punted. They missed a field goal, which would have given them the lead. And then the Bengals got an interception before the end of the game. So maybe not in that one. The Bengals and Jaguars game, the Bengals took a lead with a touchdown with 18 seconds left in that game. So the Bengals defense really only had to hold for 18 seconds, one play, negative 10 yards, not giving them that one. The Pittsburgh game was the only other game that was really close in terms of a win. Bengals get a field goal in that one with 7 seconds left, so the Bengals defense didn't have to do anything. Oh, by the way, that's after the Bengals defense gave up a touchdown on a 68-yard touchdown pass to Pat Freiermuth the drive prior. So do I have an answer on when the last time the Bengals defense actually got a stop in a fourth quarter drive that mattered? No. I do know it wasn't this year.
Last year's final game, the Bengals up 19-17. Steelers have the ball with 2 minutes to play, and they get Russell Wilson to not score. They get him to turn it over on downs. So it was the final game of last year is the correct answer there. But that just goes to the point where, yes, the defense had shown strides multiple times this year, and for the most part, I think they played okay today against a poor offense. But time and time again, they've just not fit the bill. And maybe it's just a water coming to its level from back in the playoff runs where it seemed like this defense was nails every single time we asked them to be. But it's just been a long time where it feels like every time we take the lead, hold your breath because it's going to get worse.
Yeah. Now, on the other side of the ball, obviously today they give up that drive at the end to give up the touchdown when or the field goal when they really needed a stop. We'll look back at the Jets game, obviously the 39-38 loss. The Bengals defense gave up a touchdown with about a minute 54 to go in that game. So that was a chance for a last last second stop by the defense. They didn't get it there. We look at the Bears game, and obviously they gave up that long touchdown at the end of that one to
Colston Loveland.
Who was that to? Colston Loveland. Thank you. So didn't get the stop in that one. So yeah, I mean, long story short, when the Bengals defense was needed to step up, they just didn't do it. Now, that doesn't mean that the Bengals defense hasn't played better of late. I will give them that. I do think that the Bengals defense has played better of late, and I think that Al Golden will be back in 2026. But nonetheless, I thought they played really well again today, certainly well enough to win, really only hold the Browns offense to 6 points on the day, the 2 touchdowns obviously coming on the defensive side of the ball for the Browns. So you've got to be somewhat encouraged by the way the Bengals defense ended the season. There's a lot of talk around the rookie linebackers and their performance as the season wound down. I think Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight Jr. both played better as the season went on. But still not enough. Bengals offense kind of floundered. What are your thoughts on the defense in this one?
The defense played well, right? You hold a team regardless of if they don't have some of their key players like a Harold Fannin, and regardless, I think Shedeur Sanders isn't very good. I know he had the game-winning drive, but he made too many plays today that you're just like, what the heck is that throw? You hold an opposing team to 200 yards. You can't get upset about that. In fact, we allowed 6 points. The defense allowed 6 points. So they played well. They played well. And in fact, they've played well ever since the Patriots game, I'd say. Yeah, there's a half there where they probably didn't play up to their level. I'm not saying they're the 85 Bears, but they've played better and they've shown improvement. I mentioned this before. It scares me a little bit that I think that the Bengals are going to talk themselves into keeping around or not going out and getting a linebacker and letting Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight start next year. It scares me that they're going to just roll the dice on Joseph. Not roll the dice. They're just going to bring back Joseph. Like, that scares me, the fact that they have played better. But you do have to, if you're searching for solace, if you're searching for something to hang your hat on, it's that they did show improvement as the season went on. It's that they did for the first 10 weeks of the year, they looked like the worst team in the history of this sport. And since then, they've looked like a team that you can win a division around. They look like a defense that you could compete in the postseason with, especially with the offense when they're firing on all cylinders. So, yeah, they played really well today. They obviously didn't get the stop in the final 2 minutes, which is what it is. I guess I think I read that it cemented that we have a top 10 pick, which is nice. The loss cements that we have a top 10 pick, so I'll take that. Makes me feel better. But I thought the defense, they played well. They were playing better. Myles Murphy, he's played better. Demetrius Knight, I thought, played pretty well today. Yeah, I thought the defense played well. I don't notice. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they did too. I think you're right. I'm pretty sure that they're cemented in the top 10 in terms of.
It's either 9 or 10 from what I've seen, right?
Okay. Yeah, which makes sense.
If the Chiefs lose, we get the 10th. If they win, we get the 9th.
Okay. So
that's where I'm reading through it.
Root accordingly. Super chat in from KP from KC. Got Zacked again. Major league in real life. And we have a little post-game quote from our friend Zach when asked about being able to close out games. And obviously we just talked about some scenarios where the Bengals weren't able to close out games late, giving up late scores. And here's what Zac Taylor had to say about being able to close out games. He said, quote, "That's something we're going to have to look at. To sit here today and give you that answer is challenging. If we had the answer, we would have pulled it out today." Thanks for the insight, Zach. Appreciate that. And it's worth talking about. We obviously have talked about it already, but there's no doubt that this Bengals team has struggled to close out games. There's been no doubt that this Bengals team has struggled to really finish games for a number of years. And I think part of that is interesting play calling decisions by Zac Taylor towards the end of games. He makes some interesting decisions as it pertains to how quickly he scores sometimes or how quickly he doesn't score sometimes. Just interesting. I don't have a lot of stats around it just yet, but we obviously talked a lot about scenarios that have happened, and certainly something that we'll keep an eye on. Another thing I want to chat about, Reed, is just the offense today. I felt like it was extremely boring. They end up with 346 total yards, 364 total yards, 200 and wrong page. 236 for Burrow, 142 on the ground. Just like in general, just didn't feel very explosive. Majority of Burrow's passes were short and a lot of check-offs, check-downs. Didn't really feel explosive or fun. They had one play where they kind of had some fun where they put an offensive lineman in motion and then threw a screen pass to Jamar Chase. But like other than that, not a whole lot of excitement today. Obviously didn't put a ton of points on the board. And obviously Ryan Rico ends up punting 5 times today in a pretty classic, I guess, if you want to say, AFC North showdown.
It's the final game of the year. And even though he said all week, we're trying to win, we're going to play everyone to win, I think we knew that even saying all that in a game that doesn't mean anything, you're not going to reveal the whole playbook. You're going to take it nice and simple. You're going to take plays that you feel confident and really limit it. And that's what they did. And then I'll say this, they ran the ball probably better today than they had all year, averaged 5.7 yards a carry. Both Samaje and Chase Brown did very, very well out of the backfield. So that was nice to see, and it was uninventive at times. But, yeah, they just didn't get it done. And they should have had at least 6 more points up on the board, right? The 95-yard pick six. They should have gone for it in the deep in the 45 or on the 45-yard line, because it really didn't feel like this offense ever was lackluster until the third quarter, because every drive either ended in a touchdown. Well, every drive did either end in a touchdown in the first half, but sometimes from us, and then that punt that they had. So into the third quarter, it was pretty good. I will say this about Joe. His stat line at the end of it, 29, 39, 240, 3 touchdowns, had a 104 passer rating. It's pretty good. It's about standard for Joe Burrow. I feel like he was a little off. I felt like there were several passes that he threw, like the one-handed catch from Jamar Chase, the 2-point conversion from Mike Gesicki wasn't as crisp as we've seen. And I know I'm grading Joe on a much better curve because he's Joe Burrow, but I felt like he was a little off compared to his normal talents. And I know everyone in the chat's probably going to run with that because they like to blame everything on Joe. Joe's unbelievable, but I feel like he was still a tad off today, which I'm not mad about because it's week 18 in a game that doesn't matter. But did you think he was off at all, or do you think I'm being a little too critical?
I just don't think that there was a whole lot of inspiration to take chances today. It just felt very safe to me. Like outside of the one deep ball down the right sideline to T that I think he underthrew a little bit. Like I just don't really think I saw a whole lot of risk taking today. You know? Well, like I just think it was a very safe game plan, a very safe execution. And I think ultimately, someone said it in the chat during the game is, after that first hit on that first drive, like maybe that was just hey, let's make sure we get out of here safe. Let's make sure we're not
That's a good point.
Doing anything to potentially like ruin next season, right? Like maybe that was maybe not a conversation, but maybe that was going through Joe's head. And at the end of the day, the Browns, with all due respect, have a very good pass rush. Myles Garrett obviously just broke the NFL sack record. They have multiple guys across that front 7 that can get pressure on the quarterback. And it felt, quite frankly, like they were getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback throughout today's game. So it could have just been one of those scenarios where, hey, we're just going to take what the defense gives us. I saw during the week of talking about the Browns and how they really stopped the run by rushing the pass, right? Like their focus is on trying to get to the quarterback and trying to rush the pass. And if they happen to stop the run in the course of doing so, then so be it. But otherwise they're going to leave it to their linebackers and their back 7 to be able to do that. Versus, today you saw them getting after the quarterback a lot. Joe Burrow still threw the ball 39 times. Right. Ultimately, I just think it was just a pretty safe game plan. A lot of the passes that he had were short passes. And, he ends the day with 6.1 yards per attempt versus his regular season average of 7.2. Not that like sounds like anything crazy, but over the course of a game, it matters. And just felt like in general, it was a very boring, safe offense. And it goes back to the conversation around him going down for Myles Garrett. Like, could he have escaped? Yeah, maybe. And I certainly think that if this game mattered more, he probably would have given a different effort to do that, but it didn't. And ultimately his goal was to get out safe. And I think ultimately for a Bengals fan, that would be my number one takeaway from today. The game didn't matter. Joe Burrow and everybody else got out healthy, and we move on to 2026.
To your point about playing it safe, that was alarming because with their cornerbacks out, Denzel Ward wasn't there. I think they're starting – I forget who their second cornerback is, but he wasn't there, and they didn't try downfield. And you're looking at 29 completions for Burrow. Well, Chase Brown had 4. Samaje Perine had 3. Noah Fant had 1. Drew Sample had 3. At least, 3 of Jamar Chase's were just right out of the backfield. So I can't do quick math, but out of those 29, probably half of them are just coming from, check downs or passes in the flats and whatnot. So, yeah, that's a fair concern. It was vanilla. It was vanilla. And it
was very vanilla.
As crappy
as Denzel Ward and Tyson Campbell both missed a majority of the game with injuries. So you're going up against guys like Sam Webb and D'Angelo Ross.
Yeah, and we saw when push came to shove, Jamar got open, right? I don't even know if T. Higgins has to get open. You kind of just throw the ball up to T. Higgins and you see him come down with it. But like when push come to shove, like, all right, we got to throw it to Jamar. Like, let's get some time. We'll put some extra pressure back there. And you actually saw that multiple times. I don't know if you noticed that, but like they kept 2 guys, like Samaje Perine and Drew Sample were back there to protect Joe just because they felt pretty confident in getting the ball to Jamar as the game kind of dwindled down. But yeah, it was vanilla. I don't care. I've simmered down from as mad as I was right when the game ended because now I realize it's in the grand scheme of things, it's probably for the best that we lost that game. It's probably for the best, as crappy as it feels at this very moment. And the only thing I guess I would have really liked out of that win would have been to say that we went 4-2 in the division this season. I don't know why I was holding on to that, but that would have been nice to say. Now we finished 3-3 with a split to each of the teams in the division. So I don't know what to say about the offense other than the fact is time out. What about Noah Fant? What about Noah Fant's season? I kept saying this stat. Noah Fant? These are all stats in my brain, right? He had 34 catches this year. 3 were touchdowns for us. 3 were touchdowns for the other team. 6 out of 34 catches for Noah Fant ended in touchdowns. Like, that is crazy. And we've talked about this before. I was pro bringing back Noah Fant. I liked the way he kind of helped our offense at times. But, man, 3 fumbles that are returned at 3 different points in the season, I mean, that might be the end of Noah Fant's career. I'm being completely honest when I say that. Like, that is crazy that happened 3 different times this year. And it looked like he wasn't even trying to do anything with the ball. Like, he, turned his body to the side, and it just dropped out. Noah Fant, God bless you. Thank you for your service. You better not be in stripes next year.
Couple stats for you, Reed.
Okay, sling them.
I'll start with this one. There have been 3 games this year in the entire NFL in which a team had a fumble return touchdown and a pick 6 for a touchdown in the game. All 3 of them against the Bengals. Week 3 against the Vikings. Week 11 against the Steelers. Week 18 against the Browns. Shout out to John Breach for that stat. Appreciate that one. I'll also throw out this one. Noah Fant had 1 career fumble entering this season.
Really?
1.
Really?
Gives up 3 fumble 6s. Yeah, not a good season for Noah Fant. Shout out to Charlie Goldsmith for that one. Shout out to Charlie Clifford for this one. I got one. Hold on a second. I'm done,
listening.
Reed.
Sorry, I keep trying to interrupt you.
Bengals offense has allowed 9 touchdowns this season. 63 points this year. Actually, 65 points this year that they've allowed. I can't do math. What is it? 64 points. Whatever. Charlie Clifford, appreciate you. 9th touchdown, plus they gave up a safety. A lot of points given up by this Bengals offense. I know there's a lot of conversation around that. There's been some pick sixes. There's been some balls tipped at the line that have gone for pick sixes. There have been fumbles that have gone for pick sixes. That's certainly something that has to be considered. And then final one, this one from Josh Kirkendall. Bengals in their entire history have had 6 games where they've given up a pick six and a fumble return for a touchdown. Of those 6, 3 of them have happened this season. All 3 fumbles were lost and returned for touchdowns by Noah Fant. So
it's crazy.
Shout out to this Bengals offense, giving the opposing team plenty of points throughout the course of the season. Obviously, the Vikings game got away because of the points you gave up.
Right.
The Steelers game got away because of points you gave up. So as much as we want to rag on this defense, we still also have to spend some time talking about the offense and the points that gave up on offense to the opposing team that ultimately paved the way for losses. And it starts obviously with today's game against the Browns. 2 defensive touchdowns for the Browns today, ends up with a 20-18 Browns win.
Listen, I'll say this. While those are all alarming stats, they happened with 3 different quarterbacks, right? The 3 games that you mentioned happened with Jake Browning for the Vikings, Joe Flacco, and then Joe Burrow did this one. And Joe Burrow's thrown what now? 2 pick sixes? Is that 3 pick sixes this season? Mm-hmm. Regardless.
I think 2. Yeah.
Regardless, I don't have the mental space. I don't have the heart to worry about, oh, is our offense giving up too many points? Like, is our offense turning the ball over that are leading to easy scores too frequently? Because there are so many bigger problems on this team to where, like, if that was the difference between us being the 1 seed and the 2 seed, that's a serious conversation. But at this point, that is a problem, the points that we've given up this year, although half of it goes out the window once you get rid of Noah Fant. That is a serious problem, but it's one that I'm not worried about simply because I think there's just more important things. Let me ask you this, Craig. When it comes to Joe Burrow as your quarterback, obviously everyone's concern when it comes to Joe Burrow, I think, is the best quarterback in the league. Everyone's number one concern in Cincinnati land when it comes to him is, can he be healthy or not? That's the number one concern. It should be your number one concern. If you have another concern other than that, you're clueless. You're an idiot. Is your second concern behind his health his turning the ball over? Because now we've seen those pick sixes. Now we've seen, I know last year there were several times where he fumbled the ball against the Chiefs and the Ravens when it was kind of winning time, or had the interception against the Ravens at home last year. Like, are the turnovers, him holding onto the ball, is that a concern for you for Joe? Because it's not for me. It's not for me. I don't know if it is for you.
Listen, I'm so jaded at this point, Reed, and you know this, right? Like, I'm very jaded on a lot of things. Am I worried about a guy who just last year threw 9 interceptions in a full season, only threw 5 interceptions this year over the course of 7 games? No, I'm not necessarily worried about the turnovers. What I am worried about,
there were some fumbles in there.
There were fumbles in there as well. Yeah. But I think those are kind of
fluky. Okay.
Fluky. Yeah. Quarterback fumbles are typically pretty fluky. What I'll say is this. I continue to feel like Zac Taylor doesn't put Joe Burrow in the best position to win games. And that's what it all comes down to for me, is that you look at this team and this offense is so prolific, but I feel like time and time again, the lack of a balanced offense, and not necessarily talking about today in general. Obviously, they ran the ball a lot today, but just in general over the course of the career, a lack of balanced offense, a lack of investment on the offensive line. This year was Joe Burrow's best offensive line that he's had, and it included a guy in Dalton Risner who they signed after the season started.
Right.
They continue to not invest on the defensive side of the ball. And so all of these things are adding up to not putting Joe Burrow in the best position to win football games. And it starts with the play calling. It has to do with everything that goes into it. But I don't know how much of that I mean, I know how much some of it is, but like, this is how Joe Burrow wants to play football. Like, he kind of plays with that reckless abandon every single week, with the exception of today when he took a dive for Myles Garrett. But it is who he is. Like, I don't think that's going to change. I think if you give Joe Burrow the opportunity, he's going to throw the ball 50 times a game almost every single week. It's just who he is. And so when you ask about like what my concern is, it's just like, we talked about it when Joe Flacco was in there. It just felt like that offense had so much more balance and really opened up the passing game for Joe Flacco in terms of having a running game and having a play action and all of these things that went into it, versus when Joe Burrow came back, that just all of that was gone. And I think that's the part that really frustrates me, is like calling the game one way when Joe Flacco's there, calling the game another way when Joe Burrow's there. I just don't think that they're putting Joe Burrow in the best position to win. And at some point, someone's got to step up and be like, I'm the head coach. We're going to do this. And I know that you might not like it, but this is what we're going to do.
That's a fair point. And I'll say this before I get into that. My number one concern after his health is the passes getting deflected at the line of scrimmage. That drives me nuts. That was a problem early in his career, and it's appearing to become a problem once again. But we've talked about this before. When it comes to when Joe Flacco started, you said, and I agreed with you, that you hope that Joe Burrow can learn how to go under center or want to do it more, and we have this more balanced offense. And I think that we see that. And I think that there is a conscious effort from the Bengals to do that until, like, you see Joe Burrow go under center a lot more now than he did early in his career, until things get a little dicey and they just go to what's comfortable, which is, all right, well, 4 wide, 1 guy in the backfield. Let's see the entire field. So you are right. That's something that's going to need to continue to grow with Joe. At the current moment, there's pretty clearly a conscious effort to attempt to do that, to go under center, to play a little more play action, to do all those things. But as this is right now, anytime things get, all right, we've got to get a big play, or all right, this is a big moment, they just go to what's comfortable instead of relying on what they're trying to build by going under center, and they drop them back in shotgun, and they go 4 wide, and then they just air it out once again until, hey, Joe, go be Superman, and a lot of the times he does, and it's, there's a reason that you tell him to go be Superman. So you're right. I think they are going to continue to do it. I just hope that eventually it becomes more of a regular part of their game and not just something that they're trying to do. Because that's where they're at. They're just trying to do it right now.
I think the whole conversation plays a little bit into Diana Rossini's report from this week. And if you didn't see it, I know we talked about it on the pregame show, but I'll bring it up real quick just to share with those people in the post-game and in the podcast. Diana Rossini reported yesterday that Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow has been a consistent voice of support for Coach Zac Taylor within the organization, as have receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Cincinnati ownership has made it clear they value Burrow's perspective. Taylor appears to be safe. Now, Zac Taylor was asked about this in the post-game press conference, Reed, and he talked about how much time and effort they put into those relationships and all the time that they spend with these players talking about game planning and all of these things. And I just think it's great to have that relationship with your quarterback. It really is. But at the same time, if you're allowing your quarterback to dictate your game plan versus your scouting and your philosophies, that's not necessarily a recipe for success in my eyes. And so I love that Zac Taylor has a good relationship with Joe Burrow. It may, in fact, be the reason that Zac Taylor is still the head coach in Cincinnati. But it's also one of the big reasons why I think that he probably shouldn't be, and that is because I just think he lacks the spine sometimes to really be the head coach versus being a player's friend or being a culture builder, as we've talked about time and time again.
Which is why I've said this, and some people have said this a little too harsh, and I think you've agreed with. It's why we say the phrase, like, we want an adult in the room. Like, we want someone in there that I don't need a guy to go in there and bust skulls. Like, I don't need to have like some gristled guy. I want a person that can, create those authentic relationships, because that's where everything is built, is through relationships. But I also want people to be like, hey, I know you're part of the reason I get to cash my checks here, Joe. So we'll just let you do what you want to do. I want someone that'll be like, no, this is how we do things around here, and not just let Joe kind of run his way, which is why I said last offseason when Joe's going on podcasts saying like, hey, I want to re-sign Mike Gesicki and re-sign T. Higgins, why I said, this isn't a good sentiment to have. This isn't good. This isn't how, great teams run things, is just letting your quarterback run it. I mean, LeBron James has had an incredible career. He's done a lot of losing because he's kind of ran the team too at times. I want this player. And not put himself, no one stood up to him and be like, no, LeBron, that's not what we're doing. And that's what I'm afraid of here in Cincinnati, is that we're just going to let Joe kind of run his race. I want Joe to be able to speak his mind, and I want us to have I want it to have weight in the organization. I want when Joe's to say something, it have weight. I don't want it to be the veto. I don't want it to be the final say. I don't want it to have the most weight in the organization. Like, I want there to be adults in those rooms. And right now, I'm not sure that there are, simply put.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think it's interesting. I'm not gonna get into that. Never mind. There was a quote from Zac talking about after the Myles Garrett sack, how they stopped the game for Myles Garrett and how he was frustrated with that. I don't know if I want to get into that today, Reed. I really don't. No,
there was a similar situation.
You're welcome to if you want to, but
no, I'm getting flashbacks of a similar situation that happened with my baseball team a few years ago. Ronald Acuna stealing that base. I don't remember if you remember that snafu. So I don't want to get into it either, but yeah, I don't care. Listen, you know what? I'll do it. If someone gets to do something historic, you let them celebrate. If you don't want it to,
if you don't want them to celebrate, don't let them get the sack.
Don't let them sack. Correct. Like when if you get the sack wherever you get it. By the way,
Myles Garrett had 3 of his 22 against you.
Right. Like if you
don't
want that to happen, you don't let it happen. If you don't want that to happen, you don't let it happen. It's really sour grapes if you talk about it afterwards. And also, just a rule of thumb, anytime something historic gets to happen in the most popular sport in the country, they get to celebrate. You get to do that. We're not talking about having some stupid, some dumb offhand record, like the first time that someone scored so many points. I don't care. It's one of the 5 most important statistics in the sport, in the most important statistic on the defensive side. So yeah, he gets to celebrate. He gets to celebrate right after the play. He gets to. If you don't want to, it's sour grapes from Zac. Point end of the discussion.
Yeah, said there's under 5 minutes left to go. I was never told we're going to stop the game. I wasn't told we were going to do that. I'm yelling at Joe to get under center and get going. Meanwhile, the umpire is holding the ball and not letting us go. Never said one word about it, and trying to get an answer was difficult. So, sorry, Zac. Sorry about you. Yeah, very dumb. And Joe Burrow with another vote of confidence for Zac Taylor in his post-game press conference as well. We've talked enough about it at this point, I feel like. Any final thoughts on today's game or anything you're seeing coming out post-game?
No, I'm excited to get to the postseason, and the farther we are away from the loss, I think the only reason I wanted to win that game was because it was the Browns, and I wanted to go 4-2. But now that I see that we are cemented into a top 10 or 9 pick, and it really doesn't change a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, I'm cool with it. And as I mentioned earlier, and I think we might be looking at the draft a completely different light if it's the 12th pick as opposed to the 9th pick. We could end up with the 9th pick if the Chiefs win today. And if that's the case, I don't know, just go look at every draft over the past 50 years and look at the difference. There's always going to be someone that was 3 spots back that wishes they could have drafted separately or wishes that they could sneak up 3 spots, So it's...
And there's always guys 1 pick after the Bengals pick that everybody says, oh, why didn't you pick him? Right. Bengals, look how good he is now versus whoever you drafted in that position. So it doesn't matter if the Bengals draft 9th, 10th, 15th. They're going to blow it anyway.
No, come on. No, they're not.
I said it.
No.
I said it, Reed.
The last 5 top 10 picks the Bengals have, they're 4 for 5. They're 4 for 5. Do you know who they are? It's
Burrow,
Jamar,
John Ross.
That's the miss.
Mm-hmm.
AJ Green, and Andre Szmyt. So it's not just and it's not just about the first pick.
I don't remember. Reed, were any of those people defensive players?
It's not about the first round, Craig. It's not just about that. If my math serves,
you're right. It's about
I know there's
all 7 rounds, and they're going to blow all 7. So
I don't know how many compensatory picks there are between like the 3rd and 4th, but you're potentially looking at 4 picks in the top 110. Like that's monumental. And it doesn't take too long to look at just the Bengals draft history to where like those second round picks that the Bengals had a lot of success with, guys like T. Higgins. Well, T. Higgins was the 33rd pick. What about Jesse Bates? He was earlier. He was a 54th pick. Joe Mixon was the 48th pick. We're going to have 2 picks in the top 41 at this very moment. Like, that is substantial. That is very substantial. So I guess what I'm saying is...
I hear you spouting out the names of a lot of draft picks from the pre-Zac Taylor era. And I've talked about this a lot, Reed. I know I
said T. Higgins.
Duke Tobin is your de facto... Okay. Your surefire wide receiver at the first pick in the second round. Thanks. Look, we've talked about this a lot. Duke Tobin's your de facto GM. Katie Blackburn handles the contracts. You've got like 4 scouts in the entire department. Like, Zac Taylor has way too much influence on the draft. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe the Bengals head coaches have had influence on the draft for a long time. I think Marvin Lewis was very good at drafting. I think Zac Taylor is very bad at drafting, and I think that's one of the reasons the Bengals are in the position they're in today and will continue to be in the position they are in until Zac Taylor is no longer the head coach.
Fair.
Speaking of the draft, Reed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the offseason real quick. Zac Taylor in his post-game press conference kind of laid out the next 24 hours, which of course he'll meet with the front office tomorrow morning, as he does every Monday. He'll go through kind of some of the offseason planning, and then he'll have exit interviews and meet with a lot of the players throughout the day on Monday before they head off for the offseason. But there are other important dates, of course, to keep in mind. And Chatterbox Bengals will have you covered for as much of this as humanly possible. The NFL Scouting Combine takes place February 23rd through March 2nd. The deadline to tag a franchise player, we'll be keeping an eye on that, is March 3rd. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation after Trey Hendrickson signed a 1-year deal that maybe the expectation would be that you would franchise tag him going into 2026. Whether or not the Bengals do that now after the injury will have to be discussed. Free agency will begin on March 11th. The NFL Draft, April 23rd to the 25th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then May 1st, one that we'll have to keep an eye on as well. That's the deadline to accept the 5th-year option for your first-round draft pick from 2023 in order to pick up their 5th-year option for the 2027 season. Reed, that is Myles Murphy. So the question will be whether or not the Bengals decide to pick up Myles Murphy's 5th-round option. That deadline May 1st. So a lot of dates to keep our eyes on, and as I mentioned, Reed, myself, Stone, Casey, Mike, Andrew, we'll all have you covered as much as we can for any rumors, breaking news, reports from the combine, and everything else, and certainly have draft coverage for you as well once we get there. Would expect that Chatterbox Bengals as a standalone show will probably take a little bit of a break here over the next couple of weeks, and then but make sure you tune in Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 p. You've got Off the Bench with Reed Mouse at 10 o'clock, the Stone Shield Show at 11 o'clock Eastern every morning, Monday through Friday. That'll certainly give you plenty of opportunity to get your Bengals and Cincinnati sports rundown every single day.
I do want to say this as we're winding down this show. Helped take over the show. The group that had everyone here that made this all possible. This was I felt like we grew a lot this year, even in a bad year, as a program, and I wanted to appreciate just say thank you to everyone that tuned into all one of these live watch-alongs, between Craig doing this for the 4 weeks that I was either on vacation or doing something because I got a baby on the way. I appreciate you, Craig, and especially all the stuff that you do for us. So thank you so much to you. Thank you to Andrew and Mike and Casey and anyone, Stone, that has been on one of these live watch-alongs. They're not the most fun way to spend a Sunday if you're a Bengals fan, but they are a lot of fun to hang out with you guys, to all the viewers that watch this. So thank you guys so much for being here all year long. We hope that next year is a much better year. And a special thanks once again to everyone that made this possible, and especially you, Craig, who did a great majority of the heavy lifting this year. So I really appreciate you. I really appreciate everyone.
Yeah, shout out to the viewers and the listeners. Obviously wouldn't do what we do if it wasn't for you all, and certainly appreciate you tuning in. And shout out to Reed for handling 13 of these stupid watch-alongs and having to deal with a 6-11 season, and yet another season that ends in disappointment. Back-to-back seasons and back-to-back seasons now of the Cincinnati Bengals seasons ending in disappointment, and hopefully 2026 is different. I mean, it would certainly be nice to get back to the playoffs, certainly get back to being the team that I think we all think that Cincinnati can be, especially with the offensive weapons that they have. First priority this offseason for you, Reed, is it DJ Turner? Is it Dalton Risner? Is it something else? What's your first priority?
You've got to extend DJ Turner at this point, because if we're not extending DJ Turner, then who do we have confidence in on this defense? Both those names that you mentioned. I mean, you mentioned pick up the 5th-year option for Myles Murphy. That's a no-brainer. I know that's later on in the offseason, but the first things first, you get Dalton Risner back. This offense is pretty much shored up. We mentioned that a few times, and then you've got to lock up DJ Turner and extend that. And those are my first few things. What
projections for Myles Murphy have him making $13.5 million on his 5th-year option in 2027. So certainly seems like they would pick that up, but the time will tell. I think Risner is my first one, because if you can lock up Risner for a reasonable contract, it gives you so much freedom to attack the offseason the way that I think a lot of us Bengals fans would like them to do it. It's really the only major piece on the offensive side of the ball that you really need to worry about. Jalen Rivers was okay at times, but certainly didn't look like he's ready to be your starting guard day to day. Lucas Patrick, early on, there were a lot of people that didn't even want him to start to begin with, and yet he got that opportunity, so don't expect him back. So I think it really starts with Dalton Risner, and then certainly would love to lock up DJ Turner as well, amongst a couple other people before we get to free agency. And hopefully once free agency officially rolls around in March, we'll be able to have some shows talking about some exciting signings on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe a linebacker, maybe a safety.
Ooh, golly. Can we replace the entire defense sans 4 positions? That'd be great. You said something there when we were talking about these shows. You're like, this stupid little show that we do here, these stupid little watch-alongs. And it is funny. Every time I talk about these, I refer, I was like, this. But it's a testament to fans. It's not stupid. It's silly. These things are silly. I'm standing in front of you and I both stand in front of a camera and explain what's going on as we're watching a TV to either people that can't watch, or for most of the people, they just want to fan with somebody, right? And that shows how awesome being a fan is that you can create a little community, and we're glad to bring that to everyone that watches us. And I'm glad to be here just to have someone to chat with, just to have someone that's watching the same game as you are, giving you his live. It's a silly thing that we do here at Chatterbox, these watch-alongs, but they are a lot of fun, and it's cool that so many people come together and just talk about the Bengals, complain about the Bengals more often than not, or cheer for the Bengals like we did in that Ravens game or like we did in that Steelers game. So it's a silly thing, but it's one that makes fandom worth it in the long run. And all of this will be worth it someday when we hoist up that Lombardi trophy. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. All right, wrap up the show, Craig.
All right, everybody. We love you. We appreciate you tuning in. As always, follow us on social media at Seabox Sports on X, on Instagram, on TikTok. Make sure you follow us anywhere you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening to this on podcast. Make sure you like the stream if you haven't already. Certainly appreciate that. Helps us reach more people. Until tomorrow morning when Reed will be back at 10 a.m. with Off the Bench in the Stone Shield Show at 11. I'm Craig Sandlin. For Reed Mouse, this has been Chatterbox Bengals. Bengals finished the season 6-11. We're on to 2026.